Welcome to Reed's Top 10s, Most Evil Dictators. In at number 10 we have Yakuba. Go on. Now it starts as many sad stories do with precious beautiful oil. It had been found in the Niger Delta where tensions were already high between the eastern region led by Oyoko and the rest of the country governed by Yakuba. Okay, so a dummy agreement was signed between them called the Aburi Accord, but this meant absolutely nothing to either leader. Yakuba started to put pressure on the region and tested how much sway he had in the rest of the area versus his nemesis, Ojukwu. Well, Ojukwu not being a slouch, he declared secession from the rest of Nigeria and became the Republic of Biafra. Now, you may have heard of the Biafran Wars. This is what I'm referring to here. This began a war that caused the deaths of 100,000 soldiers and much worse, a blockade on the region which starved 1 million civilians. Now, this guy used famine as a weapon of war. In at number 9, we have Mengistu Haile Marium. Now, he's a politician who governed Ethiopia from 1974 to 1991. He remains alive to this day. His ascent to power, though shrouded in controversy, involved the deposition of the previous president, Haile Selassie. Now, we all know who he is. At least I hope you do. Mengistu has consistently denied any involvement in these rumours. However, his most notorious legacy is tied to the Ethiopian Red Terror, a brutal campaign of repression orchestrated by the Derg, a communist militia in Ethiopia. So it marked a grim beginning, to say the least. In the ensuing years, thousands of individuals lost their lives, their bodies often discovered lifeless on the streets. Much of the violence was attributed to a local vigilante group known as the Kebelis. Adding to the tragedy, they would demand attacks from the victim's family, that's horrendous, to retrieve the deceased. Cynically named the Wasted Bullet, Mengistu's involvement in such horrors is well documented. Furthermore, a more macabre fate awaited those left in the streets where wild hyenas would scavenge over the corpses. This campaign is regarded as one of the most egregious in African history. In at number 8, we have Kim Il-sung. Now, he governed North Korea with an iron fist, and he steered the nation down an absolute disastrous path. He championed a command economy which granted the government unchecked authority over all, and I mean all, aspects of the country's decisions. Despite his efforts, the people's affection for him remained elusive, resulting in a precarious grasp on power at very best. Following a familiar pattern, he shifted the blame onto an external entity, the USA, or anybody except himself, accusing them of spreading disease among his populace. Taking a page from Stalin's playbook, Kim Il-sung orchestrated large-scale purges, albeit with a distinctive twist. His purges lacked any semblance of trials. Throughout his rule, the country witnessed the proliferation of prison camps that were established to confine the growing numbers of dissenters against Kim Il-sung's regime. This was a unique manifestation of his strategy to instill fear and cultivate the belief that his declarations held truth. In at number 7, we have Pol Pot. Now, Pol Pot led the communist movement in Cambodia, a campaign aimed at cleansing the nation that tragically claimed the lives of 1.7 to 2.5 million people. Now, we're going to go with the 1.7, hence he's in at number 7 on the list, okay? Notably, in the 70s, he implemented a policy known as agrarian collectivization. This policy compelled urban residents to work on farms and conversely required farmers to engage in unfamiliar urban labour. Doesn't make any sense, does it? Everybody doing what they don't know how to do. Anyway, predictably, the reallocation of labour resources proved to be ineffective, a fact that in hindsight we can now see clearly. However, Pol Pot's cruelty extended far beyond the forced labour scheme. He subjected his own people to enslavement, deprived them of adequate sustenance and medical care, and he ruthlessly executed 1 in 5 of his own people. In at number 6, we have Ismail Enver Pacha. Now, His journey commenced as a Turkish military officer, and he played a pivotal role in the Young Turk Revolution. With time, he ascended to the position of authority and guided the Ottoman Empire through the tumultuous periods of both the Balkan Wars and World War I. However, in his capacity as a Minister of War, he failed tremendously, and his competence proved lacking. So one particularly devastating setback occurred at the Battle of Sarıkamış, wherever he sought a scapegoat, and sadly he took it out on the Armenians. So he set in motion what is now classed as a genocide. The Armenian genocide was in fact the first time that we used the word genocide. In at number 5 we have Hideki Tojo. He was a general within the Japanese army, the Imperial Japanese Army, and he held the dual roles of Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. He was responsible for the introduction of eugenics into the Japanese society, which classified whether you were pure blood or mixed blood Japanese families. Very divisive. He was quite successful in World War II, and he was very highly aligned with the German Nazis. But he was eventually tried, and he withdrew from public life and faced trial for his war crimes. He was found guilty of waging aggressive wars, violating international law, and initiating unprovoked conflicts against multiple nations. What I remember him most for in my history lessons and stuff is his absolute horrendous treatment of POWs, the prisoners of war. Horrendous. In at number 4 we have Leopold II of Belgium. Now, this guy here was an ardent believer in colonialism, and he thought it was an indispensable part of a nation's greatness. But he was completely out of sync with the rest of the Belgians. Remarkably, he managed to secure the consent of 14 nations, including the United States, to grant him the sole governance over a vast landmass. Now, the Congo was 14 times the size of Belgium, and he subsequently coerced indigenous populations into forced labour, exploited them ruthlessly in the burgeoning rubber industry. Okay, it is estimated that the death toll may vary, ranging from 2 to 15 million lives lost. These devastating consequences might have been averted if the original 14 countries had not handed him such an unchecked authority. In at number 3 we have Adolf Hitler. Now, the Austrian-born dictator ruled Nazi Germany from 1933 to 1945. He capitalised on the deep humiliation that Germany suffered after World War I during the 1920s. He used this to leverage and ignite a passionate desire for vengeance among the populace. So, using potent propaganda and charismatic oratory, he championed pan-Germanism, anti-Semitism and anti-communism, gaining widespread support and rising to power as Chancellor in 1933 and to Führer in 1934. As a leader, Hitler swiftly implemented a robust rearmament program and an aggressive foreign policy agenda. His action triggered World War II, leading to a devastating global conflict. His deeply entrenched ideology based on racial supremacy and contempt for non-Aryan individuals left Europe's social, economic and political structures in ruins by the time of his suicide in 1945. In at number 2 we have Joseph Stalin. Now, he was a Georgian revolutionary that served as General Secretary of the Soviet Union between 1924 and 1953. So he came from a poor family in the city of Gori, and his communist leanings eventually led him towards the Marxist Russian Social Democratic Labour Party. Whoa, that's a mouthful. But he was first introduced to Vladimir Lenin. After becoming a full-fledged member of the Bolsheviks, he played a key role in taking power from Tsar Nicholas, and he helped Lenin establish a one-party state. Now, Joseph Stalin relied heavily on his cult of personality, and he became widely popular to the Soviet citizens, despite his initiation of mass repression, ethnic cleansing, deportations, purges, and mass killings. Before we get to number 1, I'm going to do some quick dishonourable mentions. Over there, that's the Russian Ivan the Terrible, killed 40,000 of his own people. Over there, that's Vlad the Impaler, the inspiration for Dracula. He impaled 80,000 people. Sometimes you would see fields of people who died over 2 days on 12-foot poles sliding up through the rear end, and they slid down onto them. Horrible way to die, horrible way to die. Over there, large African gentleman. He looks like he's in a wheelchair, he's not, he sat down. That's Idi Amin. He's guilty of killing 500,000 people, cannibalised people, and his ex-wives or his wives heads were found in his fridge. Lovely guy. Over there, he's probably the most well known. The charismatic Saddam Hussein killed 1 million of his own people. Genocidal maniac. And if you look behind me, we have the superstar. That's Genghis Khan. Killed 40 million people. He would have came second in this list, but unfortunately can't because it's modern dictators. In at number 1, we have Mao Zedong. Okay, now Mao was a Chinese communist revolutionary, and he served as the founder of the People's Republic. Yeah, and he acted as its chairman from 1949 to 1976. He subscribed to a political ideology termed Maoism, which was influenced heavily by Marxist-Leninist thoughts. And he emerged from the Civil War and the Second World War in a position of absolute power. He established a single-party state in the years that followed. In his quest to transform the Chinese economy from an agrarian to an industrial one, a key component to any communist society, Mao launched his Great Leap Forward, socialist education movement, and cultural revolution. Both these campaigns were to rapidly secure power and stability for his newfound position. Although he was later praised by a number of individuals and groups for leading China to its position as a dominant world power, his repressive actions proved devastating in terms of both human death and persecution. 70 million of his own people dead. So we've arrived at the end of another episode. Thank you again. If you can like, share and subscribe, as always, I will be grateful. And hopefully we'll see you very soon. Thank you.